a moving pick here. Michael trying to get around the pick. Both guys really wanted to land it afloat. This has been building over an entire season as playing time has been reduced. You know, we've only played here less than 2 minutes and we have 2 altercations.
May 25th, 1991, Game 3, Eastern Conference Finals. The Detroit Pistons were built on bruises, elbows, and one man's grin. Bill Laimbeer, the dirtiest player in NBA history. But on this day, that didn't matter at all, because Michael Jordan destroyed him physically, mentally, symbolically. With 33 points, surgical precision, zero fear, and the most incredible defensive performance of the season, Jordan finally shattered the Pistons dynasty from the inside out. He finally overcame the biggest obstacle of his career, to be crowned the GOAT. For years, the Pistons bullied their way through the East. Their identity? Simple. Pain. You crossed the line, you paid. You drove for a layup, you paid. You wanted the smoke? Believe me, you didn't want the smoke because you paid. And for 3 straight postseasons, they knocked Jordan down and knocked him out. Literally, in every sense of the word. They called it the Jordan Rules. Rules invented to stop a single player. A basketball revolution by Chuck Daly. And it worked until 1991. This year, the Bulls weren't boys anymore. Pippen was stronger, Horace Grant was tougher, and Jordan grew mentally until he convinced himself that he could beat the Pistons. No handshakes, no handouts, just revenge. The Pistons didn't just terrify the Bulls, having been their nemesis for years. They terrified the entire league. Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, Mark Aguirre, Vinnie Johnson. The Bad Boys had all the ingredients to be that team you never wanted to face. But most importantly, they had the toughest leader on the defensive side of the court that anyone had ever seen. Not just because he was an outrageous defender, but because he was a dirty player. Bill Laimbeer was Chuck Daly's enforcer, tasked with intimidating any NBA superstar. And the truth is, it had worked for them. The Pistons had not only eliminated the Bulls 3 times in a row, with Chicago being one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, they had lifted the Larry O'Brien Trophy twice. Their Jordan Rules had been completely successful in eliminating the only threat that could complicate their title run. And in some cases, Bill Laimbeer had even gone beyond those Jordan Rules. But in 1991, Michael, tired of the same outcome, wanted things to be different this time. The Bulls already had Pippen. They also had an increasingly dominant Horace Grant. With those 2 players around him, Michael Jordan had led the team to a 61-win regular season. Not only that, but he had led his team to sweep the Knicks in the first round and dominate the Sixers in 5 games in the second. The Bulls only needed to beat one more team to reach their first finals in history. Of course, we're talking about the Bad Boys. It was Michael's last chance to save his legacy. May 25th, 1991. The Bulls, led by Jordan, had won the first 2 games of the conference finals against Detroit. But those were 2 home games in front of their fans at Chicago Stadium. Game 3, in Detroit, would be the one to put them on track to finally break the curse. And that night, MJ couldn't fail. The atmosphere was extremely tense in the moments before tip-off. The players on both teams knew what was at stake. The Pistons had the confidence of having accomplished that mission before. The Bulls had the confidence that it would not happen again. And Jordan, of course, was the first to break the ice. After a miss by Isaiah Thomas, he received the ball in transition. Taking advantage of his size over the Pistons' point guard, he pulled up right in his face to get on the scoreboard. But this time, as I said before, MJ wasn't alone. The 1991 Bulls had the best supporting cast he had ever had up to that point. Players like Bill Cartwright, with his iconic and strange shooting form, were there to help him. Of course, even though the Pistons were a great defensive team, especially against Jordan, they knew perfectly well how to run a championship-caliber offense. On this play, after a good display of teamwork, Joe Dumars drills the corner 3 to even things out. MJ responded moments later with a difficult fadeaway when it seemed like he had no options left. We already know that if the North Carolina shooting guard was able to get his spots off the dribble, it was impossible to make him miss. Even more so from the elbows, where he was absolutely lethal. That night, it was clear that Michael was more determined than ever. Because, in front of a completely hostile crowd, Michael was getting hot. And that was the worst possible news for the Pistons, not only on offense. Also on defense with his quick hands, Michael was able to get the steals that allowed him to get out in transition. In this case, faced with the threat of driving to the paint, MJ makes the right decision by finding the wide-open John Paxson for the free three. But at the same time, the Pistons' defense was leaving its mark on Scottie Pippen. Look how, through Isaiah Thomas, one of the best playmakers in history, Detroit is able to convert defense into offense in an excellent way. Those transition plays were something Detroit abused over and over again. On top of that, talented players like Mark Aguirre came off the bench to bring even more energy and scoring ability on a fast break. And on many occasions, they didn't even need a steal. An offensive rebound was enough for Detroit to rocket down the court. MJ began to see the ghost of what had happened in previous years and decided he had to step up immediately. On this play, he grabs the defensive board, then goes coast to coast to the right baseline, and then banks the midi from 16 feet. But the difference from other seasons, as I said, was Pippen's progress. MJ trusted him a lot, and sometimes even gave him the offensive responsibility so that Scottie could be creative. And this connection allowed them to add 3 more points to the Bulls' score on this play. During the second quarter, the Pistons had put together a great run that had brought the fans at the Palace to their feet. And it was Scottie Pippen who managed to turn the tide of the game with a deep midi catch and shoot. However, Vinnie Johnson, who was also having a great game off the bench, responded immediately with a jumper of his own. Now, those of you who know MJ know that he liked to have the last word. And in this case, it was no exception. Because on the last play of the first half, he went against the world to bank a fadeaway in the face of Mark Aguirre. The Bulls managed to head to the locker room with an 8-point lead after the first 2 quarters. A lead they achieved thanks to MJ's extraordinary performance during the first 12 minutes. However, there was still a lot of basketball to be played, and the Pistons at home were a team that would always have a chance. Michael started the third quarter as he had started the first, eager to prove that the Pistons were doomed. After receiving a good pass from Paxson on the left wing, Jordan evaluates his options. But a couple of seconds later, he decides it's a good enough look to shoot over Joe Dumars. Of course, his airness hits the long two. Moments later, Isaiah Thomas tries to drive to the Bulls' paint, but to his surprise, Michael Jordan comes to help, getting a monster block on the smaller guard. Not only that, but Pippen and him come out in transition in a 2-on-1 situation, only for the referee to call a moving screen on Scottie. Despite that, MJ didn't give up. He continued to make the right decisions, such as this spectacular entry pass to Horace Grant for an easy dunk. And above all, he kept hitting the most difficult shots that no one could have imagined. Look at this play. Jordan dribbles, takes his time, and starts to post up Joe Dumars. Bill Laimbeer comes to help. And when he gets there, Michael scores a fadeaway to his right in the face of both players. Simply incredible. It was at that moment when the Pistons found themselves on the brink of disaster. Because moments later, after a push on Isaiah Thomas, the two teams started to heat up. A fight could have broken out at any moment, but Isaiah was doing everything he could to keep Detroit in a game that was slipping away, even managing to get a tip in over the Bulls' big men. But no matter what they did, Jordan always seemed ready to respond. Whether it was with a bucket or a spectacular pass taking advantage of the holes in the Jordan rules. Look how MJ is able to connect with Horace Grant again on this play. However, the Pistons, through Vinnie Johnson, continued to close the gap on the scoreboard, reducing the deficit to just 7 points. Jordan had to step up in the fourth quarter, and he did so in every way possible. From the low post against Joe Dumars, MJ was able to score with ease time and time again. And every time he got the ball there, Jordan attacked as if his life depended on it. Draining shots from the mid-range, trip after trip, to try to save the Bulls at the most important moment of his career. Also from the low block, this time on the left side, where he could create his shot with astonishing ease. MJ was passing the rock too good that night to attract help. And if that help didn't come, he was unstoppable one-on-one. Because look what happened when he was doubled. Michael always made the right decision that night, finding his teammates for easy buckets when the defense overreached. The man was on fire, just like in NBA Jam. And the most incredible thing is that MJ was also the best defensive player that night, blocking shots and protecting the rim like a true center. With little time left on the clock, Mark Aguirre was able to knock down a three that kept the Pistons alive. But seconds later, Jordan went around all the players in white jerseys to bank a shot that allowed the Bulls to stay in control of the game. It was an unreal shot that showed the defense was completely powerless. Every possession for the Bulls in the fourth quarter boiled down to the same thing: get the ball to Mike and get out of the way. Because the man was torching the Pistons in front of their fans over and over again. Since clutch time had begun, he was unable to miss. But not content with that, Michael was making some of the best defensive plays of his career at the same time. Until finally, the clock hit zero. Jordan had done it. He had ended the Pistons' eternal curse. It cost him black eyes, bruises, years of heartbreak. But on May 25th, 1991, Michael Jordan didn't just beat the Pistons. He buried them with 33 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, and 5 blocks. A defensive masterclass against the dirtiest team in NBA history. Bill Laimbeer's reign of elbows was over, and for the first time in years, MJ walked off the court with his head high, while the Pistons hung theirs low. Because deep down, they knew their time was up. Jordan didn't just conquer his demons. He became a monster, a leader, a legacy unleashed. From that moment, the league belonged to him. In the next 7 seasons, he lost just 1 playoff series. 6 rings later, the Bulls were already the most powerful dynasty in basketball history. Because Jordan evolved, endured, and dominated. So, was this MJ's most important victory? Was this the true end of the Bad Boys era? Or was there another moment, maybe another rivalry, that defined his legacy? Drop your favorite MJ revenge game in the comments. We read every single one. If you live for legendary breakdowns, epic rivalries, and the moments that made basketball history, subscribe to First 5 Hoops and join a community of real basketball fans. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with all our latest content. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.